Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Back to the TARDIS podcast, the podcast where we take a look at every single episode of the 2005 revival of BBC's Doctor Who. I'm Jeff.
I'm Aurora.
And I'm Stella.
And this week we are discussing Series 7, Episode 9, Hide by Neil Cross. And this one's a spooky ghost story. I like how it takes spooky ghost story and puts it in a Doctor Who setting.
It's a good spooky ghost story, and definitely one of the top 2 spooky mansion setting Doctor Who episodes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you haven't seen Ghostlight, but yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if Haunting of Villa Diodati didn't exist, just in a vacuum, forget the crap
I was
that
also
followed
thinking
it.
of the one with 12 and Bill.
Yeah.
Alright, well, okay, top 5 spooky mansion settings in Doctor Who.
It's up there. It's a quirky little episode, and I respect that.
So yeah, the Doctor and Clara go to a haunted house in one of England's moors, where there's a professor and a psychic who are searching for this ghost that has haunted the house for years.
Are they real people? Because it was treated
No.
like they were historical people.
No, they're not real people.
Fun fact, though, the actress who plays Emma Grayling goes on to play Verity Lambert, one of the original producers of Doctor Who, in an
That's
adventure
why
of
she
space
looks
and time.
familiar.
Yep.
Right.
So,
Because I'm like,
But
yeah,
yeah.
she looks familiar because I've seen Adventure in Space and Time.
yeah.
That makes sense. Also, I think the guy who plays the professor was like the bad guy in like a Mission Impossible movie once. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie that he's in for a long while, and I only saw it once.
Oh yeah,
So, yeah,
Mission Impossible 2. That's
Yeah.
a weird cut.
Yeah. Atmosphere wise, it's really good. This is really like, I mean, I know the BBC can do old houses really well, but I think this is really a case of like the Moffat era, like cinematography and production values really helping pull off Old House. Like, it looks real nice.
Yeah, they do good stuff with angles and lighting and the score, just everything set to build the tension. Again, sort of like a Cold War, except except not in a submarine. So
Yeah.
kind of samey with the scary, like, confined theme, but they do enough different with it that I'm chilling.
Yeah. I would also say, I mean, yeah, the lighting is good, and it also just helps with some of the special effects in the episode, the CG and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Chemistry also continues to be good. I keep liking the Clara and Matt Smith dynamic more than I remember it.
Yeah, it works all right here. I think it really it falls apart near the end of the series, but like here at least it's pretty good. But we're still like it's weird to say we're in the early days because they only had like 7 episodes together, 7 or 8. But
yeah, it's I mean, I kind of expected it because I liked Clara and Eleven's back and forth in The Rings of Akaten, which this writer also wrote that one. So that's cool.
yeah, he did.
And fun fact, this is also Jenna Louise Coleman's first. This was the first story she filmed as like a proper series regular. So
Yeah,
Snowman,
that makes sense.
Snowman and the Asylum of the Daleks she had already done, but this was the first one where she was a proper, like, modern day Clara. So, you know, props that I would not have known that.
Yeah,
Unless I looked that up.
they usually tend to film like the mid-season filler episode like first for when there's like a new companion. They usually like don't film like the companion introduction episode until like they've like gotten into the swing of things a little bit more.
Hmm.
Um Yo, where'd my transcript
I
go?
think just saying more on the Clara and 11 dynamic. I especially like the sort of dynamic of doubting him that she starts to develop in this episode.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a good sort of counterbalance to sort of Amy and Rory's arc, like Amy's specifically her arc of having like absolute faith in the Doctor, is that Clara is sort of starting out from this point of like she's along for the ride, but she's still kind of wary of him, and she sort of picks up very quickly that he's like detached and otherworldly.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's honestly kind of like how cuz like especially like once you get into 12 and Clara, you start to run into kind of that thing once again where it's back to her basically like trusting him, or maybe not trusting him, but being like much more like buddy, and like it's even in universe stated that she basically starts to become like him. Whereas then you go to Bill, who like constantly asks questions and is like, wait, hang on a minute, and is like calls, like says that the TARDIS is like a really fancy kitchen and just like throws him for a loop because he's not used to it.
Yeah, it's a nice place to start off with, again, contrasting sort of the earlier trust of Amy. I do like there's a lot of good like there's a lot of good moments with the one I was gonna bring up was Clara and Emma and her line of like he has a sliver of ice in his heart or something like that. Um I forget exactly, and we see Clara discover that when he puts on the classic suit and is just hopping through time as if it were nothing. um I always like those moments. Like Rose had one in her second episode where they realize like, oh my gosh, like this is serious. Like this man is larger than life, larger than anything we could imagine. So yeah, I like moments like that. It's nice when
Oops.
That was me.
rip. Anyways, yeah, it'll be nice when we get to explore that more with 12, because I think that's when that element of their dynamic comes to the forefront. It's interesting how she gets more comfortable with the Doctor once he starts becoming like more outwardly like unlikable, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a really good bit of subtle characterization for her, is that she doesn't like feeling misled about what someone's deal is, and I think she has a bit of distrust of 11 because there's that discrepancy between his outer demeanor being very personable and that, you know, what gets called that sliver of ice in his heart, versus with 12, who's just a grumpy asshole and is
Yeah.
upfront about that.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So yeah, I also I do kind of like the way, because like obviously it's a Doctor Who episode. You know that like 2/3 of the way through they're gonna be like, no, this supernatural thing was totally like had a scientific reason, or at least a more science fiction-y reason for its existence. And I think the way that they do that is pretty solid.
Yeah. They used the time machine in an interesting way. I always like when episodes get creative with like how they use the Doctor's kit. It isn't just another fucking like, oh, I'll just point the Sonic at things and solve the problem.
Yeah.
I will say the only thing that felt a bit shoehorned in was that we have this idea of like, yeah, life is scary and there's a lot of uncertainty and like terrible shit in it, but like the connections we form, love, it's very like sappy and surface level, but those like make life worth living, and those are the things that last beyond like the material. It's not the most like profound theme and well explored, but it's there. And then at the very end, they just decide to make the two monsters, or like make the monster that's been like chasing this woman like actually not a monster. And while I normally like that type of subversion,
yeah, I was just like, okay. It's kind of like it's kind of like this episode, for some reason, like I've seen this episode again like recently, but I always have trouble like remembering what really happens in it.
Yeah, it felt tacked on when I was watching it, and then I for some reason I felt like looking into the behind the scenes of this episode, and there's a lot. Apparently that like that last idea of like, oh, there's not just one monster, there's two of them, and they're actually in love. Apparently that's a Moffat edition. He was like, hey,
oh boy, of course it is.
I want to subvert this, and like, granted, there were some changes to the script that Moffat did like ask for that ended up being, I think, to the episode's credit. Like, for example, I'm just gonna like quote from this. In the original script, the pocket dimension was going to be a prison of the Lost Lord, an ancient Time Lord, also called the Revenant of Anathanon, that wanted to
that sounds way cooler. What the fuck?
That wanted to capture the Doctor in this prison, I guess, because maybe the Doctor was the one who trapped him there in the first place. And granted, that'd be like that'd be a cool setup for like trapping Gallifrey in a pocket dimension if it was established that Time Lords could survive there or whatever the fuck. But I don't know. I could see Moffat looking at that and going, that's a little bit too similar to Doctor's wife. Yeah. When you think about it. Yeah, they even... Yeah, I was thinking, like, they even call the house, like, the house, and if the house was another pocket dimension, that could have very well been it, and it very much sounds like a story that you'd want a two-parter for.
Yeah,
because that would have been super fucking rushed with.
And this chunk of season, actually no, this entire season, there are no two-parters in this whole season.
Yeah,
there's a loose connection between like the trilogy of episodes at the end of the season, but even then, like, they're very much not directly connected. Which is a shame, because I like two-parters, and I think when they go the opposite route in season 9 and are just like, hey bro, I heard you like two-parters.
Yeah.
I think it worked really, really well, and unfortunately they're probably never going to do that again, but it would be neat if they did that again.
Honestly, they pulled it off really well.
Yeah.
It's also unfortunate because the next few episodes, I believe, could have like worked really well as that. Like, Journey to the Center of the TARDIS probably could have
Journey
used
of the Center of the TARDIS. I'm gonna have some strong fucking words for that episode.
Yeah, that and the
that shit
Nightmare
sucks.
That and Nightmare in Silver could have used a bit more breathing room. I don't even remember them that well, but I remember feeling like, wow, I'm like a fucking like young teenager and don't know what good writing is, but even this feels like a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, Clara fucking talks to the TARDIS like voice interface for the first time in this episode.
maybe it's just me, but like maybe it's like just the effect they put on Clara to make her the voice interface, but it would be neat cuz I thought she kind of looked worse. Like it looked like she had like bags under her eyes, and I'm like, is the TARDIS deliberately making her kind of look worse? Again, maybe that's just me and like my headcanon reading into like
really
the
funny.
filter, but that was a small bit of thing. It's just like, okay, if they actually did that, that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be really funny. Um I might have zoned out. I might have zoned out. How did she actually like get into the TARDIS?
So,
Clara?
Clara, when it was like, no,
it
I'm
just
not.
let her
I'm
in.
not.
It just let her in.
Okay. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
she yells at it enough to build the tension, and it eventually lets her in. As I said, the climax, even before the whole like, oh, they're actually in love twist, gets a little busy.
Yeah. Like this week is like the worst time for me to like record this episode because I've been so fucking busy this week. And like when I sat down to watch the episode, it kind of went in one ear and out the other.
I think it's very easy for that to happen, especially in this one.
Yeah.
It's a lot of atmosphere and not a lot of,
Yeah.
you know, fair enough.
And like it is a shame because I like the aesthetics and I like some of the character bits with the spy dude. I don't remember, but like the spy dude Professor Man when he's talking to 11 and is talking about like the fact that like because of his role he sent soldiers to die. And like that kind of weighs on his conscience, and also because he's metaphorically haunted by the dead, he goes and decides to be like literally haunted by the dead.
Yeah, they're not. I think characters like Emma and I think his like first name is Scott or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Generic white Brit bonger name. The I feel like characters like that are the closest we get to like the fucking RTD like two-parter.
The RTD
characters.
ideal, yes.
Yeah, which no, we don't have a bias. Shut up. But honestly, it does get close to that, I think, and that's what like I felt the history between these characters, and I think in a lesser episode, when it gets to the climax of like Emma is like passed out, she doesn't think she can open the portal again, and like he talks to her and builds her up and says, like, you saved me, you saved this girl. Yeah, in a lesser script, in a lesser episode, like that could have just been like, we've known you for like 40 minutes. We don't care. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But like I found myself invested. Their dynamic was quite cute.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I don't even hold on. What does the fucking monster in this even look like? I swear
like
to God,
weird bone creature
I
with a
swear to
fucked up
God,
face.
I fucking watched this episode like twice in the last like 2-3 months, and it's like a black void, and it's a shame because I don't think it's a bad episode. I'm having a real one right now, guys. Okay, I see. That's a neat monster design. I like that. That's some good, it looks practical. That's some good practical.
Yeah, they captured like the weird like jittery like uneven movement by filming it backwards. Or no, filming it regularly and then playing it backwards like on the actual effect. So that's some neat like practical effect right there.
Yeah. And I mean on the budget with the locations that they have, they did a good look of like making this completely like alien hellscape that isn't even technically a part of our universe. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I especially like the transition where the doctor is in the house after he gets trapped and he takes a step forward and he's back in the forest again. Like,
Yeah.
again, just small touches like that that create that like tense atmosphere.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
yeah.
And it manages to stay Doctor Who while going outside the box a little in terms of like normal Doctor Who vibes, which is I think something that the show should do more. At least, well, I mean it's a double-edged sword because the show then tries to do that and does some shit like fucking Sleep No More. But you know,
Yeah. I one thing I liked is
at
that
least Mark Gatiss tried.
yeah. I like that they just had someone who was a psychic and not only like a regular psychic but an empath. And
Yeah.
it wasn't like she was like secretly influenced by some alien pollen. Like
Well, I mean, they've already done the legwork on like psychic existing in universe, so like it's not that tonally like a mismatch or anything for them to just include like psych, because you have the psychic paper. Time Lords are noted to have some level of psychic ability. All of the Torchwood staff like got like psychic training.
right. I just mean like cuz you go back to something like the I always forget Mark Gatiss's first episode, the title of it.
Unquiet Dad.
Yeah, you go back to that and it's just like, oh, you're only psychic because of the rift.
Yeah.
And yeah, you could maybe say like, oh, she's only this psychic because she's calling out to her future like descendant or whatever
Yeah.
the fuck. But like it's still she still like has that and it isn't like some extra thing. I don't know. Stuff that adds to that, like the complexity of humanity, the fantastical element.
Yeah.
Even though they were kind of sucking the empath's dick with being like, they're the most compassionate people you'll ever meet. And I'm just like, that's not the same thing. Those aren't congruent. But I get you have a 45-minute script, so we can't delve into the nuance too much. But still, kind of yikesy. Moving on.
Yeah.
It was still a nice, like, again, yeah, it's a nice thing. I like these characters. I think there's a reason why I see so many fanfic of either Emma Grayling or her descendant, who is also psychic, traveling with the Doctor.
Wait, really? I don't read that much fanfic. I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's like a semi-popular character. It's the plethora of OCs that people create to be companions still like trumps her, but she's like pretty high on the list of like side characters that are canon that people make companions because they like to.
Yeah, and I mean RTD bias, but like this isn't like Linda with a Y that we're talking here. Like it's not like it is a side character from like a quote unquote filler episode.
Yeah,
that's impressive. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm out of stuff, but like I normally I have more stuff, but normally I have like I'm not nearly as busy as I've been. So do you guys got anything?
Normally we have more too, but honestly today has been really busy and I'm very tired.
Yeah.
I guess I'll lead off with other things I like that are just smaller. I like how we get an explanation for why, because sometimes Doctor Who will do this where we start out with like the setting that we're going to be like experiencing, and then the Doctor and the companion come in later. I like that the ghost, like Emma figures out the ghost wasn't the reason the Doctor came, it was for her. Even though the Impossible Girl storyline is kind of boring once you figure out like what the answer is, it's nice to at least see like some attempt to like thread the continuity there of like a reason the Doctor is going on this adventure with Clara. Because it seems very specific, like, oh, I'm gonna hunt ghosts with you. I don't know. That was fun. And there's a line in the episode that I didn't like know for the longest time. Like, I didn't get this joke where it's like, what's the opposite of ignorance is bliss? And Clara says the ignorance of bliss is Carlisle.
Yeah, well, I looked at that, I'm like, what is that joke? What is that?
So Carlisle is a city in the UK, and it has long been considered dull for like tourists. It's just like boring. So
okay.
That's basically like
all right. That's a Brit
joke.
Sorry, guys, we're American.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, just I don't know. As I said, it's a weirdly like quirky episode with the tone that doesn't really match the theme, but it's quirky. I like the characters. It's good.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on to ratings, I guess. Yeah. I wish I could remember more of this episode. I think it's definitely pretty interesting, pretty solid. Got some nice atmosphere. I just have had like a real fucking train wreck of a week. But I think what's there is pretty solid. It's definitely, I think, one of like Moffat era's better, like just kind of filler episodes. I definitely think. And it's pretty cool that the side characters from this episode have apparently had like the like fan work longevity that like most like normal companions get. So that's cool. Yeah, it's a solid B.
Yeah, this is another episode in a confined space. Sort of less than the submarine. You get some mileage, but like not really. The main, you could call the house a character in this story, I think. The atmosphere is great. Characterization is pretty good, even between Eleven and Clara. We won't really start to see that go downhill until probably next week. Yeah, just all in all, it's again we're sort of in this period of like series 6 was sort of a downer for many ways that I can't go all into right now, but we're kind of getting back to this like median like level of quality where it's just like, yeah, this is good, you know, and that's not bad. You need the good stuff. It can't always be like high, like it can't always be like Jubilee level content, and we don't like it to always be Chibnall level quality. So like this is good, you know. It's a fun time, it's a fun watch. One last thing I'll bring up that I didn't bring up in the regular discussion of the episode is I think it's nice that Emma and the professor's descendant is mixed, and they're both white, and they clearly could have just gone like, oh, your descendant is white, but they didn't. Because that makes sense and everything, and that was a neat touch. I don't know.
And it's definitely like another thing of like again, I have issues with the current era, but some of the stink that people on the internet raise about this era is hilarious. Like if this happened today, people would be getting so pissy at it, but they don't, because it was from before the current era.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been just like Doctor Who goes woke and it goes broke, part 7013. But yeah, it's a nice element, nice touch among the many nice touches in this episode. I'd give it a B minus. The minus because you kind of rushed the twist at the end.
Yeah,
and you didn't really need it.
Yeah, I'll do a B minus too. Actually, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but everything up until then is like, it's either serviceable to actually pretty damn good.
All right, it's a very alright episode with some good stuff, and it looks okay. And yeah, it's a it's 6.75 out of 10.
Yeah. All right. Next week we will be covering shit. What is the next episode?
Journey to the Center of the TARDIS.
Oh fuck. God damn it. Okay. Yeah, so that's gonna be fun. Until then, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at B2TARDISPod. You can support us on Patreon for a number of benefits, such as early access to episodes, the ability to listen in live to episodes being recorded, and potentially even the ability to guest star upon an episode of your choosing. I'm Geoff. You can follow me on Twitter at WheatleyDL.
I'm a hot single skeleton monster thing looking for others to date in the area. Please, inquiries at of mice and femmes at thetwitter.com.
I'm Stella. I words. You can follow us at Nomadiclastic.
And we will see you all next week.